Welcome to Do It for the Gram, an Enneagram podcast with your host, certified Enneagram coach, Milton Stewart, where we do it for the Enneagram, not Instagram. We make moves to improve our lives and those in our community. As you know, this is going to be the last episode of our defense mechanisms. So we have the Enneagram Type 1 on this episode. If you have not checked out the first two episodes with Elizabeth Worm, we hit the defense mechanisms pretty well and the wounding messages and shaming messages of each type. And I think those are super important and they're really helpful. So check those out. But also if you're a person like, I only look at my number, I only listen to my number episodes, that's totally fine too. You'll still get great impact information out of this episode as well. Let's go intro music. Super excited to announce my new partnership with BetterHelp. This episode is actually sponsored by BetterHelp. If you are struggling, BetterHelp can help. You'll receive 10% off your first month when you sign on using betterhelp.com/doit. So I'm super excited about this partnership that me and BetterHelp have entered into, because in this point where everything that we're doing right now to connect with people is more virtual, it is so important. Mental health, I think that aligns perfectly with things that we're trying to do, things that I want to do, and anybody that I would refer or think that could be potentially beneficial to the audience. And I think BetterHelp is definitely one of them. BetterHelp is basically, it's online counseling or therapy. So you're able to actually get some counseling or therapy depending on what's going on, from licensed counselors and therapists around the country. And you get to be able to get some of that one-on-one mental checkup that you may need. And BetterHelp's able to help you. So just go to betterhelp.com/doit and you'll get a 10% discount for your first month. So what are Enneagram defense mechanisms? So these are some really tricky, really can be hard to detect, because they blend in with our type structure. And so it makes it even harder for us to sometimes notice them when they are happening, because they blend so well into our own type structure. So we believe they're kind of just a part of us almost, right? And so that makes it really hard sometimes. Now, what's important to know about them and why it is so important to be aware of them is because if they go unchecked and unnoticed, then they stop us from growing and going deeper into our growth. And so the defense mechanism is like super important for enabling us to do super deep levels of growth, because we have to move past it in order to keep going. Or we'll just continuously stay in the same spot and kind of be half-hearted in the way that we engage people, the way that we engage the world, because the defense mechanism really shuts off a little part of our heart, different parts of our heart. And I mean the energetic heart, not just the physical one, but when it happens, the heart really doesn't function well. So we don't really connect and communicate very well. And so what happens, our defense mechanism is triggered when our ego, something like trips our ego up or challenges our ego to go deeper or to connect more or to go to a place that it doesn't normally want to go. So it just pops up and it's like, whoa, we're going to stop you from getting there. So we're going to deploy this defense mechanism. What is the Enneagram 1's defense mechanism? So we're going to jump into that. I'm going to explain it using the concept of the law of three. And I got this from the narrative tradition, okay? So if we're thinking about a triangle, so one end, we're thinking about the type 1 ego structure believes it is right and good as an ideal, okay? So on one end of this line, we have I am good and right as an ideal, okay? So type 1s tend to find their value in being good and being right, right? That's the type structure. It's trying to find value in being good and being right. And so in order for the idealization of that to stay intact, they must avoid being wrong, making mistakes, and anger. So you have a line that goes across it, and it says, I am not wrong. I'm not wrong. I avoid being wrong. I avoid making mistakes, and I avoid like being and showing anger. Okay. So you have that at the other end of this law of three so far. So now we got our two different ends. Okay. If you believe you are good and right, and not that you can be, but you are, and you avoid being wrong, making mistakes, and anger, which is the reality of our humanness, then you come out with the defense mechanism of reaction formation. Okay. And so the question is, what is that? Reaction formation. So, reaction formation is a pattern of going against a natural impulse in order to seem good, appropriate, or to do the quote unquote right thing by compensating their anger and frustration with a faux version of the environmental norm right thing to do, pretending and presenting the opposite of how they feel in order to feel like they are good or right. And so, for this, if you really think about this, and you're trying to understand it from a standpoint of like, how do I see it in layman's terms? It's kind of like someone has made you mad or pissed you off, but you're going to smile and act like everything's okay with them, to a certain degree. And it's not that very specific for every situation, but it can be. It's not really registering and showing the authentic version of what they want to express in situations, because the personality structure of the one is so affixed to trying to be appropriate or do the right thing or do the good thing. And so it can make it really difficult for the one to even be able to express authentically themselves, because it's like a lot's going on, but I should, this is what I need to do in this situation because it's considered the right or good thing to do in this, area or this domain which I'm in. And so that is a huge thing. So it's really doing the counter action, going towards good or right from societal standpoint of trying to present themselves in a certain way. So what does this kind of look like? So a big part of it is denial and not accepting parts of themselves that don't seem outwardly right or good. That's the thing. A lot of times, the personality for the ones, they kind of know the difference between how they present themselves compared to like how they really kind of see themselves. But there is a lot of times a denial and a not accepting of those parts of themselves. And so there's this rift inside of them because part of them like feels a certain way strongly, but outwardly they feel like they must present a certain image that is good or right. So part of it is being mad at a person. This is another way, being mad at a person for something. And instead of communicating how they honestly feel, they respond in the so-called appropriate or proper way. Okay. And so that comes off, you can see reaction formation. It looks a lot of times rigid. People express reaction formation a lot of times in a rigid way because it's like you're trying to do the nice, good, or right thing, but you're actually really angry. So the emotion behind what you're so-called trying to do is still coming out, but you're just saying it and you're just trying to do a good or nice thing in a way. So like it comes out that way. So they have to be very careful because that is exactly what will happen. I'm going to do the right thing, but you're like actually mad. Let me give you, you're hungry, right? You see somebody who's homeless or they need food or something, and you like throw a plate of food at them. I fed them, right? Like it's like, no, but you missed the whole like part of, the goodness in the good you were doing. So that is kind of part of how it can kind of shift or look like a little bit. And so showing up, trying to give, sometimes it can look like this, showing up, trying to give the look like everything is good and they got it mostly together when they may be struggling deeply. It's not even just always the communication of it. Sometimes it's literally showing up in different places, feeling like they have to look good or right because the personality structure of the type 1, it has this way of, like you said, wanting to get that value of being good and doing things right. And so in order to go in these places, these circles, I have to look good or be right, And so the structure holds very tightly onto that. And so it doesn't allow them to express, like, listen, this is how I really feel today. I know my hair is half combed, you know what I'm saying? And I'm a little off today, but I'm here and I'm ready, but I have some things going on that I'm working through, and being able to communicate that, because that can be hard because they're presenting this image that is trying to be so correct and so right that a lot of times people misunderstand maybe what's going on deep within them. And then there's a misunderstanding from them of why people don't understand them, right? Because the image that they're portraying sometimes seems to be so prim, proper, appropriate, or quote unquote correct or right, that it's hard to see the deeper, beautiful human side of them. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, or in between, it's hard to see it because the type structure of the one is trying to portray everything is good and right with them, even in the way they physically show up in the world. Okay. So not just always the words. Does your workplace stink because the culture sucks? Are you tired of tolerating people and wish you could all work together cohesively? Does going to work give you instant anxiety? If you say yes to any one of these, you should probably quit your job. But since you aren't going to quit your job, you should call Kaizen Careers. At Kaizen Careers, we are all about improving personal and workplace performance. We use a unique tool called the Enneagram. The Enneagram helps individuals and organizations become more self-aware. That self-awareness lends into helping organizations with communication, leadership, and conflict management, ultimately turning self-awareness into self-mastery and creating healthy workplace performance so you can improve your services and bottom line. You can reach Kaizen Careers at kaizencareers.com or 901-334-1644. So how do you counteract this defense mechanism? So a lot of times, like I said, you can always flip the defense mechanism, okay? What is the flip of it to be able to help you kind of counteract it? And so part of the flip for the counteraction of reaction formation is choose heartfelt honesty and authenticity over good and right. So a lot of times when situations happen, because type ones have that strong inner critic that is like going on, it is looking at different things. And I always encourage type ones to make sure that they give their inner critic some type of name and a description so they can make sure they know that, give a little separation from that inner critic and the essence of themselves. But choosing heartfelt honesty. And then this word, like this little phrase, the heartfelt part is very important. Communicating from your heart, your honest truth allows you to connect with people from a more authentic level. Now, just communicating pure honesty, quote unquote, without your heart can really come off as judgmental, critical, sermonizing, piercing, a lot of different ways, right? Because there are some honest things that like one sees sometimes. It's like, well, things would be better if you would just do this. Your life would be better. Like, and it's true to quite a bit of an extent, right? But when you don't communicate it from your heart, it's not going to land properly and you're not going to connect, because the heart is what connects people. So through communicating heartfelt honesty, you're able to talk to a person from your heart about something that you seriously feel like you want to kind of look at, maybe something that could be better, maybe something you want to address. But also heartfelt honesty helps ones to really say, okay, yeah, I believe this could be good or right, but is this worth it? Like, because is this worth talking about this thing that's not even that big of a deal, and it'll actually probably do more damage if I like go in and try to fix or correct and like try to tell this person or this situation, So it's like, okay, how can I go to my heart and be honest about the situation? Like, okay, this is not even worth it. I'm gonna move forward, because now you're engaged with your heart and not just engaged with your head, the inner critic, and your body, just to do something. Okay, so choose that. So choose that authenticity over being good and right, which can be a little difficult, but it's actually very freeing for type ones, and to kind of counteract reaction formation of showing up of what they have, the society says is good or right in that situation, but just being authentically themselves. It's freeing. It really is. All right. And also the next one is journal. How do you want to show up or respond versus how reaction formation makes you show up? And so ones are definitely usually have a whole lot going on in their brains. And so this journal is kind of the verses. You're going to kind of say, all right, so this is how reaction formation makes me show up in this situation. I see this and I see what I'm doing. Now, how do you actually want to show up? And so you write that on the other half of the paper and say, how do I want to actually show up in this space? How do I actually want to speak? How do I actually want to communicate, engage with people in this situation versus how reaction formation and the type 1 structure, when in control, makes you show up. And then after you've written those things down, go ahead and practice showing up that way and work on doing that consistently and trying different things to show up different ways, because it's a practice, right? We have to practice these things, and it will feel uncomfortable a lot of times because you're doing something counter to the type structure and the personality of yourself. But that's okay. That's what practice is for, because once you practice and you keep practicing, you tend to get better at what you're practicing at. So that is another way. The journal then move it to a practice for the type 1 to counter that reaction formation that can show up so unconsciously. And all of this is so unconscious a lot of times. I mean, it just shows up. As soon as we leave majority of being present, our type structures kick in and do their thing. Just run the whole show, drive our car everywhere it wants to go, but nowhere we want to go at the same time. So that is the tricky part. So thank you so much for listening. That's all I have for this episode. Short, sweet, to the point, practical, and helpful. So that's what I love. And so I want to make sure to remind people, I do have my book for pre-order right now, Motivate, Elevate, and Ameliorate. It's an Enneagram book, a practical Enneagram book to help people transform their lives. And so that is out right now until April 15th. I am trying to get to 1,000 pre-orders so that I can actually get a big time publisher so they can pay for the upfront costs, because that would be absolutely amazing. I'm excited about that. Please go and pre-order the book. The pre-orders also come with bonuses, which is the absolutely amazing part, right? So check those out. That'll be in the link in the show notes, but also on my IG and my website, kaizencareers.com. You can check that out there. Also, podcasting is not free for me. It is free for listeners. So if you want to help support Do It For The Gram podcast, you can go to patreon.com/Do It For The Gram, become a Patreon member. In that space, I offer things that are a little extra, some things that I get that I don't always have the time to necessarily share on the podcast, of deep Enneagram wisdom from different teachers that I have access to just because I'm blessed to know some of them and be in some of their circles. That some different things that I do that's not always podcast accessible, I guess. Some different things I create. So in that space, I'm doing more and more to put things there. So you can check those out. You're welcome to support. Also, IEA, the International Enneagram Association, has what's called Ennea groups coming up. And you can go there and find a different Ennea group based on something that you're super interested in. I am leading the BIPOC Ennea group. Also, that is against anti-racism and doing work there for Black and brown people. But there are groups for more and more groups are being developed for every type of niche you can just almost think about. And shoot, if you're an IEA member, you can be a leader of one of the groups and create your own if you want to, which is totally fine and cool as well. And if you're not a member, you can still join an Ennea group. You just can't lead it yet, but that's totally fine. I think this group's going to be absolutely great for Enneagram community, for people who are striving to do wonderful things in different places and who have common issues, struggles, or bonds. Okay, so it's really cool. Then the other thing is, I just finished my first cohort of the Kaizen Complete Enneagram program, which is a 12-week program where I teach the Enneagram in community. It has been a phenomenal program. We just ended this past week, and everyone has grown tremendously, developed tremendously, experienced things, grown bonds with different people. It has been absolutely amazing. So you'll hear some on the podcast coming up too, as well, as they talk about their experience with the program. And so the second cohort starts August 5th, okay? And I'm only taking 20 people because I want to make sure that this community is not too big, but where it's at a size where the ability to communicate, to join, to collect, to connect with people is there on a really deep level, where people are able to really be able to learn to like deeply connect where you like unconditionally start to have empathy and compassion for others and yourself. You learn the Enneagram on a deep level. It's deep. It's really amazing. And it's really helped a lot of everyone in there. So you can check that out. That'll be in the show link. That'll be in the show notes. There'll be a link in the show notes as well. And they'll also be on my website, and it'll also be in my different IG places. And so if you want to check that out, go ahead, because after May, the price will go. There's a discount. There's an early bird discount for anyone who joins before May. So that way I'll know exactly who to prepare for and all the things to prepare for them, which is obviously great. Go ahead and sign up for that if you are interested. And if you have questions, just reach out to me. You can email me, milton@kaizencareers.com. And then last but not least, I do have an ebook that is for free from my website. So you're welcome to pick that up. And there's another one coming out pretty soon. So you're welcome to pick up those free ebooks. Just some quick practical, knowledge from my Enneagram experience about the different types. And so for type 1s, if you feel that reaction formation is about to happen, it is coming up and it's about to spew out of the way you show yourself or you speak, take a deep breath, pause, and make a better choice. And do it for the gram, the Enneagram, of course. And I'll see you on the next episode. Bye. Do It for the Gram podcast editing and mixing is done by Saw and Sign. Information will be in the show notes.